Inevitably, when you go on an unscripted 2,000-kilometre journey, lots of brilliant, bizarre, random things are bound to happen. I've got more memories from this trip than I care to count. But the thing I was happiest about the most was the universal praise that the series has received. So I thought I'd kick off this Journey Across Japan highlight video by reading out some comments and just hearing the voice of the fans. This pretentious white prick ruins the channel. So on the morning that Ryotaro joined the Saiko, I went down to meet him on this beach by the Akashi Kaikyo Bridge, the largest suspension bridge in the world. And he was sitting there and he did the smuggest greeting I think I've ever seen a human do.
Good morning, everyone.
And then just as he said the line, "And now I'm joining the tour," this guy came running out the background, out of nowhere, and threw himself to the ground. It was so beautifully timed that even if we had staged it, the timing couldn't have been any more perfect than it was. And yet I had no idea who it was, and best of all, I didn't even notice until I was sitting down to edit the sequence a few weeks later. But I felt the clip of the falling man, summarised the sensation of meeting Ryotaro better than words ever could. So on the fourth day of the journey, we found ourselves in Niigata, meeting my good friend Roy.
Roy, 久しぶり.
Hi, 久しぶり.
And the night before, I'd kind of spoken to Roy and I sort of said to him, show us around Niigata, show us places of cultural, historical importance so we can show the world what Niigata is like. So he took us to a fried chicken restaurant. Roy, what is that? That is ridiculous. A mountain of karaage fried chicken.
No, Niigata, people usually eat a lot.
But it wasn't the ludicrous quantities of fried chicken that I was forced to eat that stole the show, nor I nor Roy, but Aya, the Niigata food fighting champion, who by sheer good fortune was just there the same day as us, filming a video of her eating a never-ending bucket of food. Honestly, that pile of food, how can it fit inside her? I don't understand. The only downside was, at the end of my fried chicken eating challenge, compared to what Aya had pulled off, I just looked absolutely pathetic in comparison. Winner, loser. Hazakashi ne. Hontoni hazakashi. I don't know how she did it. Osaka is one of my favourite cities, and Pete Donaldson is one of my favourite humans. So with that in mind, I knew it'd be a whole lot of fun when we got to Kansai. And it was, watching Pete Donaldson confuse the locals with his bizarre, incomprehensible dialogue.
To sort of say yes. In my accent. Why I man?
Why I man?
Why I man?
I am.
Why I man? Why I man?
Osaka style.
Or just terrifying us with his aggressive karaoke singing.
I want it that way.
But for me, the icing on the cake, the highlight of it all, was the Blade Runner-esque neon lit montage that we made at the end of it all. It's something I'd always wanted to do, as I think Osaka at night is one of the most beautiful places in the country. But I was especially happy to be able to fit in the sounds of the Japanese students repeating the phrases that Pete had taught them earlier. It kind of made the whole thing just work.
Osaka style.
One of the most difficult daily challenges that I've faced was trying to get 3 people to say the phrase "Journey Across Japan," 3 strangers. Asked 3 people to say "Journey Across Japan" on camera. It was difficult because I was in a very remote place and I didn't just want to go up to some farmers, some strangers, and scare them with my bizarre request. It had been a long day of cycling, about 50 kilometres. My legs were all but fucked. But then I found myself in Niigata Station by the sake vending machines, where I met a guy who I was able to convince to say the phrase "Journey Across Japan." This guy looks kind of friendly. Kamera ni muke, "Journey Across Japan." Journey across Japan. But even that became seriously frustrating as he struggled to say the phrase. Journey across Japan.
Journey across Japan.
Journey across
Japan.
And I remember the frustration growing, just thinking, come on, say the fucking phrase, you can do it. And then finally, after I think 3 attempts,
Journey across Japan. Journey across Japan.
yes! Yes! About a week into the trip, we found ourselves in this beautiful region of South Niigata, about a 150 kilometre stretch of coastline where there was quite literally nothing of value. So I asked the team who choose the challenges to put something good into Untitled so we could have a daily challenge that we could kind of build the video around, build the narrative around.
Oh, okay, this one's cool. Pimp your bike with at least 5 crazy Japanese items.
It's quite difficult to explain the sheer excitement of going into a second-hand goods store and buying a load of broken crap to stick to your bike. I mean, it's not often you get to do ridiculous acts like that without being wheeled off in a straitjacket.
On the line, when I write between the line, I could put it in a song or deliver the rhyme. I put my life on the line, trying to get that shine.
And I'm not sure what happened to all the things we used that day, such as Joey's waifu pillow. But the fact we got to end the day dancing on a beach with a beer, alongside our pimped out bikes, listening to the Natsuki bicycle soundtrack, alongside the world's largest nuclear power station, it probably made it the most surreal day of the entire trip. I mean, just trying to describe it now just makes me feel like having a mental breakdown. If you watch the drone shot carefully, you can actually see my beer is knocked over and stolen by the sea. And I think it was the only can of beer that we had left. So it was a devastating blow to an otherwise perfect day. It was 3 days into my journey across Japan as I cycled across the plains of North Niigata. The sun was shining, the birds were singing, and there was not a living soul in sight. Well, except for the old lady at the side of the road offering me biscuits.
Oh,
On the surface, it looked like a wonderfully friendly, spontaneous interaction. However, what I failed to show in the video is for the 10 minutes that I was standing there chatting with her, at least 8 of those minutes she dedicated to trying to lure me to some elaborate tea party. And what was so unusual was the fact I kept saying, oh no, sorry, I'm busy, my friends are waiting for me, I really can't go. But she kept trying again and again in a very un-Japanese kind of manner.
日本語大丈夫。大丈夫。行きたいけど、友達が待ってる。待ってる。ごめんね。
She even got out her phone to show me photos of other foreigners who she'd been able to lure back to her party. And it was just a series of photos of very bemused, confused white people standing in a kitchen wondering what was going on. Suffice to say, didn't really work in encouraging me to want to go.
すみません。本当にありがとうございました。醤油クリーム。
For me, the whole experience, the whole interaction, represents the greatest what-if scenario of Journey Across Japan. I often wonder what would have happened if I'd taken her up on her offer and gone to the house party, or if I'd ever have been found. If there's one place you choose to ever go cycling in Japan, make it the Shimanami Kaido cycle across the islands in the inland sea. I'd been looking forward to it for the first half of the cycle, for the first 1,000 kilometres. And when we got there, it didn't disappoint. Up until that point, I started to feel really burned out mentally and physically from constantly filming and cycling. And spending the day cycling alongside beaches, through forests and endless bridges, it just felt like one big meditative experience. Not only that, but for the duration of the day, I was far less out of breath than Charlotte was, which made me feel fitter, superior, and just better in every way, to be honest. Yeah.
Well, look who it is.
For some reason that defies comprehension, the day that Joseph the Animation Man joined the cycle, I let him choose the first challenge. Now that day I was keen to show the world Niigata Petting Zoo and the wonders that lie within. But Joey had other ideas.
At Niigata Petting Zoo, you can pet 3 types of goat.
A whole 3 types of
3
goat.
types of goat.
I didn't even know there were 3 types of goat.
There are now.
No,
All
people
right.
don't want to see a petting zoo. People want to see us shitting our pants scared.
Brilliant, thanks Joey. Alarm bells did start ringing when we got to the road leading into the tunnel and found that it was not only blocked off but completely overgrown, and it was pretty hard to get to the tunnel. It was pretty well concealed.
Keep an ear out for the voice of a woman. Are we really going in?
Nevertheless, armed with the world's most ineffective flashlight, we ventured into the tunnel. It was pretty eerie, not least because as we got midway into the tunnel we did find a damp patch on the wall that looked remarkably similar to Joey's face.
Can you see it?
Yeah, I can see it. It looks like a silhouette.
Joey, that face looks like you.
I'm not even joking. Does that not look like you?
And we didn't do anything, that was genuinely there, and that was a little bit weird, a little bit creepy, I thought. I don't believe in the supernatural, but I was a little bit creeped out in the tunnel, and I didn't like editing it because I never knew what I was going to see in the background. You never know what you're going to miss, aka like the man on the beach. But some viewers say you can hear a voice if you turn the volume up and if you listen closely. I think about 10 minutes in. I'd rather not try and listen, to be honest, especially as at one point Joey ran off and just left me in the tunnel.
Son of a bitch.
It's terrifying to think if I'd not sprinted out the tunnel after him, if I'd stayed in the tunnel, I'd probably have been eaten by ghosts.
Time for biscuits.
Yeah, definitely.
One of the best things about starting the never-ending cycle of despair in my old hometown in Yamagata Prefecture was getting to kick things off with Natsuki. Originally the plan was for Natsuki to drive alongside me for the stretch, but to our surprise, to our amazement, Natsuki actually joined in the cycle himself.
I still can't believe Natsuki's actually on the cycle. Hey!
Now, of the 5 years that I'd known Natsuki, I'd never seen nor heard anything to indicate that he'd done any exercise ever, unless you count smoking 30 Marlboro Red cigarettes every day as some kind of weightlifting training. Natsuki is a man of many surprises, but it was certainly an amazing one to be able to kick off Journey Across Japan with him alongside me. But then he surprised us all the next morning when he drove 50 kilometres all the way down the coastline to see us off in the morning, whilst wearing a cherry for a hat.
Wearing something different. What's this?
It's Yamagata Idol. Jelly Chris.
What? Oh.
Nice helmet.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Full of surprises. Full of surprises. Before I get to the number one highlight, there is definitely a runner-up. We had a fantastic production team, and for anyone who's appreciated and enjoyed Journey Across Japan, they all deserve special credit. Whether it was Omar and Chris, who were in the thick of it filming as the camera crew, or Wenmen and Meg, who had the daily nightmarish task of collating 100 gigabytes of data from drones, GoPros and DSLRs and cutting it all down to the highlights for me to start working on. But other than me, there was only one other person who did the entire Journey Across Japan route. The guests changed, the crew changed, but he was the only one unlucky enough to endure the entire thing.
Last but not least, this is Ian.
Hello.
He's from the UK. What's your favourite thing in the UK?
Clearly the Queen.
The Queen.
Ian, our coordinator, was like a human Swiss Army knife. For 2 months, he drove the gigantic people carrier, transporting the team, equipment, spare bikes, and amazingly, he only crashed it once. It was terrible. It smashed the whole window. It was everywhere. Real mess it was. And yet, somehow, despite driving the car, doing the accommodation, planning the itinerary, building the website, somehow, despite all those things, he was able to be a father to Ampan Man, filling him with daily challenges and even starting a highly successful Ampan Man Instagram account. There was even one day on the trip when we didn't have a drone pilot, as both Chris and Wenben were away, and given I was the only other person who knew how to fly it, Ian actually took on the role of being me. And if you look closely, you can see it's him riding the bike, not me. To be fair, I should have just got him cycling the whole thing. Would have been a lot easier for me. But without Ian and his stoic problem-solving attitude, I don't think Journey Across Japan could have happened, so I'm incredibly grateful to him, a special thanks to him. And though him and I had only met a couple of times before the trip, it's safe to say now that him and I are bestest friends forever, whether he likes it or not.
毎日仕事行って、仕事から帰って、寝て、また会社行って。
Easily the funnest and most difficult challenge we faced, but the end result was completely worth it. Joseph the animation man and I were stuck in what can only be described as the middle of nowhere when we got the challenge to make a Japanese commercial about the energy jelly that I'd become so desperately reliant on.
You seem to love that energy gel. Make a TV commercial for them.
Honestly, I don't really remember the exact creative process. What I do know is Ian discovered the only interesting thing on the route, which was a railway station with a train carriage on display and a giant train set.
There's no people here.
There's nobody here. We've got an entire train carriage to ourselves. It couldn't be any better, to be honest.
And I knew there and then that whatever we did had to kind of be built around that setting. Next we went to Don Quixote, where you can get any manner of fancy dress costume.
Where's the jelly?
Joey picked out his doctor's uniform to become Dr. Jelly. And I decided we really needed the electric box because of the dozen or so times that I'd seen it. I really wanted an excuse to buy one, and this was it. As for the script and the dialogue, we just kind of did it there and then on the spot. And thankfully we had Ian, Omar and Wenben on hand to help film it, or to play the role of the bemused passengers. But I think we're all amazed at how well it came together, and it felt like one big masterclass in creativity and teamwork. I was especially delighted we got to put the electric box in there, and again that was all my idea. That was all me. Journey across Japan has been a nightmare, but a brilliant one, and the journey of a lifetime. And I can't wait to share the last action-packed week with you in the next few days. But for now, guys, many thanks for watching and for being a part of the never-ending cycle of despair.